can't think of it. Yeah, good, how are you?
Recording in progress.
Wow, we have like
Oh, hey.
the one closest. Yeah.
They pulled the chair out. I felt bad. Like, I think you
At least walking is possible.
I brought it.
Oh, you did?
This is what happened to my notes. Yeah.
Be for Frank.
A bad week or two.
You got hers. Christian.
7 or 7. Not good. It's everybody.
Very cute.
Little weather setback, but you know. Still.
That's how it happens.
Yes. That's right.
Is Frank not gonna be here today?
He will be here today. He was not supposed to be. He has a business trip he's gonna take that got postponed to
I'm
June.
not seeing his truck, but I think it was gonna be. No, it didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, he came in yesterday and said he would be here.
Hey,
There
Frank.
he is.
Lisa, did we ever have to do this? I didn't think so.
Just in case anybody else came
Yeah,
in.
thanks.
Well, I found this on a forum in 2024. Apparently, it's really common to be getting an 8-digit code when you need a 6. There are lots of people struggling with this, and I don't know, this is on a Microsoft.
Does it give any suggestions?
Yeah, well, these are the, 1, remove the existing account and log in, 2, scroll down until you find security. I mean,
John's forward the link to me now. Check it out when I get home.
yeah,
I can't get back in anymore.
you can't?
No, I gave up. I tried to print mine out actually.
I didn't have time to troubleshoot it, but. Yeah, I'm still getting 8-digit codes. No,
Well, I usually just for people, but if you can have it, then
I had it.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if it's because they made all those changes.
I mean, but like,
Yeah, I don't know.
which one, I mean, after we. Oh.
When they
those
set up all the
changes.
SharePoint sites now.
Yeah.
We may have to send out new invites. So we're moving our server from the hardware to the
Sure.
cloud onto SharePoint. So they're setting up all the new SharePoint sites and they were doing that in the last couple of weeks. So that could be why everybody's having an issue. We may just have to send new invites to everybody.
anybody likes something for the class.
So get started.
Sure.
All right, it's 5:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, April 30th, 5:30. Any adjustments to the agenda? Additions or deletions? Okay. Public comment, it does not appear we have anyone public.
Public.
Committee membership. You letters of interest, recommendations to select board. We have Pat here this evening.
Right.
Thank you.
That's terrific, yeah. Remember that big, I'm gonna get the words wrong. The planning committee or?
Planning commission, right, yeah.
Awesome.
Did you want to say anything, Pat, or?
No, not really. I mean, I'd love to join if, if that meets everyone's approval. So I'm on the planning commission. I'm new there, so there's a lot to learn. It's like everything else, it's a lot more complicated than initially meets the eye, and we're in the process of redoing the town plan this year. So it seemed like it might, when I spoke with some other members of the planning commission, they thought it would be a good idea if someone
Representative.
were on this committee as well, and other folks weren't able, so. Here I,
It's huge.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee?
or anything you want to know about my background, or we're new to North Hero. We've been here since October of 21. Before that, we were in Moortown, which is in the Mad River Valley for a little over 30 years, had a farm there, and we have a marketing research business. My husband and I am a partner. So we work for membership organizations, educational institutions, and then we've also worked for Fortune 100 groups, Heinz, M&M, Mars, McDonald's, Taco Bell, that sort of thing. So
Great,
kind of our background, my background.
thank you. And Jim, any questions or
I'm good.
Angie? All right, we have a recommendation.
That we're supposed to do that. So I make a recommendation that we, for Patricia's request, our request, Patricia, on this board. Commission, committee, whatever. Yes, committee.
Yeah.
There's a couple with this connectors.
Second, Frank, okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries, so,
I'll write up a letter to the select
select
board
board,
recommending, yep, I already told Corinne to put it on Monday's agenda, so.
okay, perfect.
Thank
You know,
you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we need to also talk then about the?
So we were gonna do the reorganize and, the
Yeah.
chair and all that, but I thought she should actually be a member and
Before we
appointed
do
by the
that,
select
that
board. So
makes
it'll-
sense. So we'll do that for next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Flipping right along here. Item number 5, review of CIP program documentation. I know Lisa had sent out a lot of information, updates the last couple of weeks. And I think she's gonna bring that up on the screen. I think the idea here is for us to walk through the comments and edits and just make decisions by paragraph, if you will, and just get this wrapped up. How that sound?
Sounds good, Chief.
Thought he was president.
I like to keep them just on, on block out. That's right, Mr. President. I know.
Down. Can I do that or no? Yes, we
I
can do
think
that?
you go to view. If you go up to view on the owl, there's on the top, there's a view option. And then if you go to standard. Then you can minimize that. Okay,
So on the cover page, Joe suggests changing the capital improvement plan committee to the capital planning committee and removing the word improvement from the title.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because we're not really improving, we're planning.
Yes.
Hopefully the planning improves. Improves, given time.
So we go,
You like our tagline?
I think we can move along, and then
Hopefully.
also changing the years from FY 26 to FY 31.
I don't know, I like Lisa's suggestion. If this is a program, does it need dates?
I was gonna say, why we think dates are,
If this is gonna be our program that we follow,
yeah.
They don't need dates,
No.
okay,
it gets approved by the select board and this is what we follow every year until it needs some changes.
right, because we can make a change next year.
We're
All right.
transfer with some, I'm sorry.
We're gonna do that.
Jason,
We're gonna. I'm gonna try to keep up.
Yep,
We'll see.
Is this something that the select board has to get involved? I mean.
They have to approve it.
Yeah, when it was originally.
So we'll bring it
drafted
to
with
them.
Their
Yeah,
letter.
yeah.
when you give a budget, are you gonna show them the changes?
I don't know. They'll probably want to know those.
You know what, maybe I'll, just give like a bullet point, like we changed it from
Yeah,
improvement to
Right.
cause
planning.
that would get down into minutia.
You're right, yeah, if they get this with all the crossouts and all the, it would be really
They'll send it
confusing.
back.
Yeah,
They'll
like,
send
what
it
does this
back.
mean? If we just give some bullet points, you know, we changed, did some wordsmithing,
Yeah.
isn't gonna be a big deal, but the big things.
Yeah.
I can just,
Yeah, if there's any substantive type changes, you
Yeah.
can just.
we'll let them
highlight it.
know, we'll
Yeah.
highlight it for them. Or I
So-
could even highlight it in the document and say, you know, this was changed. or
Yeah.
Whatever.
So our recommendation is that this becomes the capital planning committee, and this becomes the capital planning program. Right?
That's what I'm proposing.
Yep, great.
All right. The next edit or change is underneath the program.
I was still getting confused.
Oh,
I think I did a search and find and everything that was planned got changed to program. And yet there are still some places where it should say plan because they're referring to the actual 5-year plan. And I,
capital improvement
so,
confirms to the
And-
town
and-
plan.
Eliminate improvement. We're gonna make
So-
and so I think in this sentence, because it says capital budget and plan, and then it keeps going. That I wasn't,
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So this is gonna be plan, not program.
well, that's
Plan.
for the adoption of it, because what's what we want to do
Capital Plan.
Yeah, be the capital plan,
is.
which is,
create a
yeah, that's the
capital
term we
plan.
have.
We're using this document to create a plan, so I
It
think.
can't be
that's-
the capital planning plan.
It'd just be the capital
Yeah.
plan,
Just
Capital plan.
give it the word planting, all right, capital plan.
There you go.
Yeah,
And everywhere it says improvement program is gonna say planning program,
okay,
right? Like I'm looking at the
Yes.
introduction.
Yep.
Okay,
Will make it much easier to read too, thank you.
okay. Cause I'll probably miss some of these as we go through, but I can go through after. Okay, next. So what is the capital planning program? Program. Plan is a community planning and fiscal tool that spans, so. I think Corinne did the stuff in blue. And I did the stuff in red and added Jim's stuff, which also showed up in red, cause I couldn't. So,
We're
Just
gonna eliminate.
give the first,
Improvement in the
first,
first line.
improvement in the first line, right?
Yeah.
You could probably just
I
do a
could probably
word search
search, yeah.
afterwards and just do that.
yeah, that's
just
what I thought, I'll just
replace.
catch, yeah.
Plan is-
I'm fine with the blue, capital budgets up here. You have the first six body for approval or inclusion in the upcoming years. Yep, that makes sense.
Good to move on?
Yeah,
Mhm.
what is the
Okay,
capital plan? Yeah.
so some of this was Jim's, I think.
So,
Right.
yes, the town thing was mine, just to eliminate the word town. Was house in quotes, should it be in quotes? I don't think it was before. Then it just said townhouse, and I said, just get rid of town.
It was in quotes.
Oh,
think.
okay,
You want the quotes or no?
I don't think so. What does everyone think?
I think Terry did this, and I think he was trying to do an analogy that. Think about planning for your town as you would
Well,
your
see,
house.
to me, to be consistent, then you need to put inspection in quotes
Yeah.
or home inspection.
It's
Mm,
coming.
So I'm saying just
Some.
Yeah, I would just eliminate that.
Quotes.
eliminate the quotes.
mhm.
Okay. So I added, we talked last time about the 5 year to 6 years. It's
Okay.
5 plus 1, so it's
Right.
actually 6 years.
Yep.
Okay. And then,
And I'm just gonna say one thing about the first sentence of the last, I'm sorry. Just hearing out, it just sounds. If you read the rest of the paragraph, it explains it pretty plainly what we're trying to do, just improve the physical plant and the assets and it's just.
The whole think of the capital plan as a home inspection,
Yeah,
I find that
kind
one
of.
too. I just,
Let's make it, sound,
or we can just get rid of it.
that's what I mean. Well,
A
make it-
capital
keep it
plan.
consistent
Just get rid of that
with-
whole
It's a
sentence.
the
multi-year.
whole first sentence,
Yeah, I'm good with that. Less is more.
and it just goes,
It's well written.
capital plan is a multi-year.
Yeah, that's, I would agree, that makes sense. There's improvement again, but you'll correct those later.
I'll get,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go back
Yep.
and get those.
Yep,
I'm good.
yep,
With the blue,
yep.
okay,
Optimize, that makes sense. Earlier identification of future projects and capital needs, that sounds good.
all right, we good?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. So
CIP will change again in that capital plan. Won't be CIP.
CPP, is that what it's named? CPP, CPP? CIP to CPP?
Yep.
Okay. I'll go back through and change all those. So Corinne, this, all this blue was you.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, I'm just, the word chief executive, or the words chief executive almost implies like a singular, like a single person.
Leave it with the select board. Take out chief executive.
With a community select board, just take out chief
think so, yeah.
executive, the,
That's almost a
Yep.
political term of art.
Mm.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
with a community select board.
Exactly. Oh, shut on the cheap now. I'll offend you.
Okay. That all looks good to me.
Annual review and adopt. Okay, so. This paragraph, and you said this should be included somewhere else.
Oh,
There's her
it was in here already under select board responsibilities and I'm reading this as. So, I was thinking, okay, we've been through one for the first year round and we've had a lot of discussion over who's responsible for what. So I thought, well, let's document it a little better. And then I get to this and it's more like, okay, is this what they're responsible for? Or are these policy objectives? I just ended up, maybe I got two in my head, but I ended up being confused.
It can happen easily.
Yeah.
Cause you're on fire with them together.
So if this is the select board's responsibility, they're gonna be a little more involved to, arrange it in order of priority. I mean, I kind of feel like we were doing all of these things to present to them.
Yes. We were doing it in
So,
conjunction with the departments.
yeah,
It's like we want-
so I don't know, it just didn't feel like the appropriate place for it to be housed. Of course, it doesn't look like I was helpful and put a suggestion of where it should go.
Could you go up one to see, so the context above it again, I kind of lost there.
Okay, so we're under responsibilities for
under
the
select
select
board,
board.
okay.
Yep,
Developing the plan, approving the plan, is essentially what we're saying. We're essentially approving the plan that we recommend.
So they're responsible for overseeing it.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for approving it. And I guess maybe this is here to concisely tell them exactly what they should be looking for.
I don't, I think it belongs someplace else, but just because it's so detailed. But I don't.
It really is the proposed, and I'm not thinking, well, is it just redundant? Because if we go further down.
is it part of what we do? Is it in there?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I mean, a description of each
The
proposed
role.
project.
Aren't we the ones developing the CIP or the CPP?
Yes,
So scroll back up. And it says the CIP will be arranged. So if we're doing it, that's our job.
I think what I would suggest, Lisa, if you take that paragraph that's highlighted in dark blue.
Mhm.
And drop it down to the capital improvement plan committee. Go down a little bit more under number 2, the role of the CIP is to blah, 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 blah. I think if you're gonna put it anywhere, it would belong right there.
Collect and analyze
Maybe
capital,
as the last paragraph in two,
Yeah,
make recommendations for
yeah,
the
just
capital.
move that to the end of two.
It's almost like if you're writing about the select board, you say, select board receives the information or the
Yeah.
recommendations from the capital planning committee and makes the final decision as to the recommend, the ballot, whatever you want to say about it. And I'll leave the detail.
I'll drop it in there.
Nice. No fire.
Everybody good with that? So we took it out of there.
yeah,
So the select board is, that's what the select board's responsible for.
Review and adopt.
And then we go to, is there anything in this next paragraph? The select board will present the adopted annual capital plan and budget to the town at a public hearing. The final annual budget and capital plan will be published in the annual town report and submitted to the voters at the town meeting for spending authorization. So that's what we end up with the select board responsibilities. Nope, Frank doesn't like it.
No, I'm just
Oh,
reading through it, make sure.
And it's we're saying
Pay
they're
attention
gonna vote on the annual capital plan and budget, not the 5-year, not the 5+1.
the voters will only vote on the
for-
annual.
That's
That'll
what we
be
say, so
included in
that's
the
good.
operating budget.
Perfect.
So that's what they vote on.
But the select board approves the 5-year plan then?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, because they're determining what needs for the next 5 years should be included in the annual operating budget.
Awesome.
makes sense.
All right, we good? Okay, so now what the capital planning committee is responsible for is, let me get that out of there. 5 and 2, 9. Appointed. So 3-year terms. Collect and object. Simply. Will provide a dedicated.
It should probably be like an apostrophe S after committee before approved.
Is it really 3-year terms only because we have a 2-year term, we have a 1-year term? And then we have, I know you staggered it too, so we can. do it
Yeah,
Correctly,
so,
just
yeah.
keep that, just let that go on, 3-year terms.
Yeah.
It's already staggered, I should think out loud.
Okay.
It's already, staggered.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Where should there be an apostrophe?
So we're in 2, capital planning committee, the very last sentence of the first paragraph. The CIP will operate following the capital improvement plan committee's approved rules of procedure. It should
Oh,
be possessive.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Rules of procedure. What's that?
they weren't in the packet, but we have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're okay with this. Cause we're saying
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. Um,
You lost
remember
three
them. But I'm so sorry, I shouldn't say that. but-
boards and departments.
No, no.
There's a lot to happen.
Say I got crossed.
You can't get in.
There we
There
go.
it is.
There we go.
That was easy.
Yeah.
So we're good with the CPP part?
I'm sorry, I'm just reading that once, the second sentence in the second paragraph, the CIP committee will provide a dedicated advisory resource for overseeing the capital program.
We take out dedicated.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Good question. or
Provide an
dedication?
advisory resource, take out
You
dedicated.
could take a dedicated, doesn't do anything. Sounds good, but
Okay,
It was 3 times, that's not-
so an advisory. Change it to
I mean,
and
that's essentially our job.
and, okay, yeah, I'll do the grammatical stuff.
later, sorry.
Yeah,
You guys did a great job, this is hard work.
Yeah, I think that's good, thanks.
Boards and departments.
and I suggested time, or was that you, Jim, timeline instead of
No,
timetable?
that wasn't me. So we're gonna- that timeline is good.
I do too. It's what we've used everywhere else.
So what was your question, Lisa?
I recommended changing timetable to timeline. The
Yeah,
original was
last
in there,
time.
yeah, so. um, Okay?
Yep.
We good?
Yep.
Boards and departments. These commissions. Between concept, funding sources and functions, forms. Develop timeline.
I'm just thinking about in some of. Will they always be able to identify the funding source, or are they coming back to the select committee in some future time and saying, we really need this, how do we?
But yeah, I guess they identify that they don't have a funding source.
That's part of it.
Yep. It's fine.
Yeah, we good?
Mhm.
Okay, planning commission.
Have they done that before? Have they submitted a written?
They did not. So last year we learned that we didn't give them enough time.
Oh,
And that was part, so we changed our timetable to allow for the planning, the
Okay.
planning commission to do that. So we did submit it to them. And they could have had time. It wasn't a lot of time, but they could have had time
They
to
could
do,
have read it,
they,
okay.
yeah.
but your expectation is that they will. And
So I think in the time, I think we moved it up to July or
We
August
send it.
Wow,
to give it to the
That's
planning
really- that's
commission.
Really fast.
Long before it goes to the select board, so they have a chance to offer their input before it goes to the
Because
select
we don't
board.
get the documents until the end of June.
Yeah. So
But they may submit a written.
they don't have to, they don't have to, if they have
So that
suggestions.
statute says that you may.
Yeah, because this actually falls under the planning commission. It's part of their responsibilities, the capital planning committee
Makes sense.
improvement. So,
It's an evolution.
so according to statute, it falls to the planning commission, so that's why they have to be included and given the opportunity to.
I'm fine with the next paragraph. I'm gonna run out and get my water bottle and back.
Anybody else? Everybody good with planning?
Good.
Yes.
Okay, residents. I think Jim recommended putting the meetings in there, that we have all these meetings that they are welcome to attend. And we took out about voting on the 5-year plan and the capital budget, as they'll vote at, they vote on the annual operating budget at the annual town meeting.
Makes sense.
Stay till.
Yeah, good to move on. Okay, policy. What's the what?
Great.
Those were Terry
Gary's highlights.
comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is not, I think those are what he added and they just show up differently.
This is a capital expenditure. Appropriates.
So do we need to change 5-year to 6-year?
Mhm.
Does it even have to say multi-year or just say 6-year?
Take out multi-year?
Say extra words, not needed, but. We know how long it's gonna be.
I could use some help with the third paragraph, with the exception of emergency contingencies.
I'm sorry, before you go there, but
Oh,
just
sorry, go ahead. yeah.
eliminate the parens around, just say.
Yeah, take out the,
6 years
okay,
plan.
yeah.
But you say, Andy.
The next paragraph, I'm having a little trouble getting there. With the exception of emergency contingent, no capital appropriation may be presented to a vote if it has not been considered in the CIP committee's report to the select board incorporating the town CIP.
Can you eliminate contingencies and just say with the exception of emergencies?
Well, yeah, here's what I'm thinking, because we have grants that show up at odd times. That may not hit our traditional boom, boom, boom cycle.
Hmm.
It's happening in the library. We talked about it last meeting, actually, where we have a grant coming in for a shed. And, you know, most of it's 5, 8, most of it's covered by a grant that will come out of our capital, our capital budget, but. And our conversation was, we take like this, we take like the select board, because last time we didn't want to have anything coming back. This says, I think something that I can only, if I was the library board, I could only do that if it was an emergency.
Hmm.
Someone's gonna get a grant, that is gonna be a wonderful grant, and it's in mid-cycle, and you're gonna take the money if you really need it. I think, so how do we, that was my question last time, how do we
Right.
incorporate ourselves in that? And we had the discussion that we really didn't want to.
So that works, because right now we have it set up so that each board is pretty much in charge of their capital expenses, their capital, because each board has their capital fund. So there's a library capital fund, you know what's in it, it's clearly separate from other fund accounts, and you guys really have control, well, I guess.
It,
the
it,
select
it is,
board
but,
ultimately.
but we still have to get the select, right, you just said that.
So if this, I think the reason this is in here is because if this had been developed for, I guess, a more traditional town where there's one budget of capital funds. And
It's
we're
not
just
how I
not,
read- I'm
we're
I'm
not set up that way, though.
Yeah, I don't. I'm reading it as off-cycle things that happen.
Hmm.
Emergency, and those emergency, sometimes they're not, they're.
Just the opportunity
And
presents
that's
itself
fine.
and,
Pretty
yep.
sensitive, right?
and
So how do
everyone
we
take
address
advantage of
that?
it.
Notwithstanding this, but
Mhm.
how do we address? And this is what brought it up to me, because it just says with, only with the exception can we do this. And here it says we need to bring it back to this committee first before it goes anyplace else. And last month we said. We don't. wanna
Because
do
of
that.
timing and meetings and
Right,
those kind of things would go, off-cycle things would just have to go to the select board.
Right.
And then incorporate it into our next
and we have
year's.
to you kind of pull
So,
it,
yeah.
pull it through for us.
Mhm.
Well, it's deeper than that. It says you can't consider it unless it's been in the committee's
Mhm.
report and incorporated in the town CIP. That makes it a whole year-long process.
Yeah, I can't agree with this, apparently, I can see it, right?
Do we need that paragraph?
Or you have
Well-
grants through emergency contingency?
Well, it depends on how much planning we want to enforce in the town. I mean, if you really want there to be consistent and well thought out planning. And
And that's why I almost think, we meet monthly, I'm just gonna say this out loud. If something off cycle happens, I still think we need to have some piece on this. It's leaving this just from a planning, what you just said. Kind of the planning perspective, and how does that play into the kind of larger picture, whether it's financing and, I don't know. I don't wanna get in the select boards, never mind. I don't,
It just depends on when it comes in, and we could always try to drop something in. Even farther in the cycle, but
like you guys said, it's just, it's such a. There's so many, things that have to go like this to get something. Done, It has to come here, so it's select board, has to get grant approval, has to get all those things, so. This paragraph doesn't make sense.
I'm gonna reach out
but
to,
realistically, like, and to put something into our little ranking system. Like, an hour. Right? So.
But
up
then-
until the point we're finalizing our program. Or the budget in the 5-year.
Yeah, I think it's just so we know how much really is out there. And you're gonna keep track, or we wanna keep track of it as well too.
I mean, if it comes in after the point where we send it to the select board,
it's
right,
gone to
package.
public hearing, yeah.
then it's done, right? Then nothing is gonna happen, but up until that point, even if we're going through our process. You could airdrop something in along the way that didn't have a Schedule D on it yet and. Fill it out, because you,
We could, but it has to go to the planning commission and I mean. I think maybe we'll ask Greta,
yeah, that's a good idea.
So we.
because this has to happen, right? I mean, this is not,
reality happens.
exactly.
It's like a fast track process, right? I mean, it
So
doesn't
how
have to
do,
be
how do
perfect.
other towns
You
handle
have to have
that?
the- You have to have the funding, you can't just, unless it's a true emergency, you can't just say, well, fund do this now.
I mean, the planning, I don't know, it's like 6 or 7 years ago, Parks and Rec had an opportunity to get a really phenomenal grant. And they went to the select board and the select board said, sorry, you didn't plan this out well enough. Like, there's a lot that goes into, like, if you want somebody to do grant management, if you're looking at office capacity, if you're looking at the match for the grant, if you're looking at. It was a little contentious and the neighbors hated it, you know, it isn't always just because you want something that it should happen, and so I think. And the Parks and Rec was really disappointed, but there was no planning modality at that time, so I think what this really gets to. Is how much of a town are we going to enforce townwide planning? Maybe I'm wrong.
But isn't that up to the groups if they don't follow through, they're the ones at risk. So ultimately, it's the select board that decides whether money gets spent, correct? And to me, I think the only thing we really need to capture in that paragraph is that this committee needs to be informed of it so that, yeah, if we have time, we incorporate it into the plan. If we don't have time, well, it still goes into a file, so we know about it. And maybe we take a little look at it so we can make a recommendation to the select board in anticipation of their vote.
And if it's a multi-year project, or, you know, it goes into
Definitely
our
gets rolled
cycle
in then,
for,
yeah.
for,
So I don't know whether we just want to say that with the exception of emergency contingencies, we need to be informed of any new projects that come along.
Because something like $1 million project isn't gonna happen
No,
overnight
but a
and,
small grant
with
with
that, you know.
$10,000 is, or.
Right.
$20,000,
And
yeah,
You don't
select
wanna
board
be-
decides. We just need to be informed.
That's right. And that's what you said last month. Really.
I think we'll ask Greta and maybe I'll ask Marguerite. How, you know,
You don't wanna build things so tightly that you shut
That you-
down the whole
Right.
town. It becomes
Right.
like the, you know, sunshine laws.
That's
another-
I'm sorry.
That's right.
What I'm wondering about is if, after talking to Greg about that paragraph. Right now, it's prefaced with, says with the exception. Maybe it needs to just talk about the exceptions in the event of
an
a,
exception.
of an, in event of an emergency. Or something along those lines, the contingency reserve fund be used. I think the assumption that the second part of that first sentence, no capital expenditure appropriations may be presented to a voted on that has not been considered in the CIP committee report. Blah, blah, blah. That is almost like what we've already like discussed up above. The process we have in place is that they all come through here.
And I think what you and Jim just said is what makes sense for this paragraph, which is if something happens off cycle, I mean, like you said, I mean. Something untoward happens to a big building, it's not gonna be a, you know, 1 year.
Right.
We're talking about small, relatively small things. You get a little grant, someone gives you a donation, they want it spent this year, whatever it is. We wanna be able to say, it gets recorded here too.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, the select board can do whatever. the hell it
Right,
wants.
exactly. We just need to be notified. It kind of is like where we talk about our monitoring. Well, we're not really here to monitor. The groups need to inform us. We don't want to have to go looking for it. And that would be similar here. They
Well,
just need to notify us.
yeah, a policy is not an ordinance. There's no enforcement capabilities for this. So this is outlining best case scenario. And then you're right, the select board can do whatever they want. So we could put in here. You know. You can't do anything unless it's part of the plan, and then anybody who wants to could go to the select board and request an exemption because they have a grant or they have a.
Right.
But
Was it really though? It's like a 4-month window? Is that really what it comes down to be?
That you
no,
can't,
because you have to take it through the, you know, you gotta go to have a discussion, take it to, I mean, each entity has their own process for doing stuff. And that's how long.
It's a quiet period investment banking or something, right? Where you can't speak
Can't
about the
speak.
deal, right? And for X period of time and then it opens up, right?
I just don't think that we should be talking about emergency contingencies or anything else, frankly, because that's sort of not our,
I'm fine with taking this out.
about that word kind of, that means select board.
Take
Select
it
board
for now
decides-
until we get feedback.
Select board decides if it's an emergency in some ways.
I mean, because we shouldn't be telling the select board in an emergency to use the contingency reserve fund either. They might want to get a loan or.
Exactly right. That's my point.
So,
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
feel like it's-
I missed the highlighting. I'm gonna highlight it
Maybe it's just the wording that's the.
yeah,
and we'll,
come back to it.
yeah,
I like that.
can get some more input about it and figure out a better way to.
But are we kind of in agreement that we don't want to be the policeman, we just want to be informed?
Correct.
Yes,
That's what we're after. Okay.
pretty much. people to come to, not just where if we start telling department what they can buy and can't buy, but not in our cycle.
Right, yeah, sorry, come back in 6 months and see.
And then wait.
And then wait, yeah, because it's not gonna be improving for
If we
next
go,
year.
I'm just thinking about this, if we go back to the boards and departments responsibility for a second, I wonder if we should include in there. You say boards, committees, commissions, trustees and departments, and identify capital needs in the areas or sub priorities, and cost estimates. I wonder if we need to put a sentence in that particular area where they have a responsibility to report to something to us that's sort of off cycle, that's like a. That has
Yeah,
come up,
that's a good idea.
just to
put it in
let
there.
them know that their responsibility is to keep us informed.
Yeah.
If something happens during, you know. Similar to what we were talking about this past year where new cost estimates came in or something, whatever it might be. That there should be, we should just at least be in. Their responsibility should be to provide that information when it becomes known,
Mhm.
as opposed to. Once a year.
Yeah, we'll educate them about that.
That way, I think like, for example, if a grant should come up. You know, mid-year or outside the cycle. That they have like, I don't know,
So what do you want to say? Communication to the CPP committee?
yeah, something to the effect of, any modifications or new information.
To be approved, to your approved capital plan.
For capital project.
Must be communicated
To the
to
committee,
the CPP.
but I don't know, I don't know if like.
In off cycle or
Yeah, like,
in,
See,
During-
Capital planning committee.
or throughout the budget year as they occur, or as they are known,
Yeah.
or something like that.
occurring throughout the occurring,
Just be communicated.
occurring during the year,
Yeah.
The plan year.
during the
year, yeah,
plan,
yeah.
during the plan year, must be communicated to the committee.
Well, because remember last time we talked about the really big projects. Fire station.
Debt policy. Did somebody rewrite this?
The debt policy,
I thought the last time I read this, it talked about the role of this committee in the debt policy.
I think it's later on.
But that's later on.
I think it's later on. We didn't make, nobody made any
Okay,
changes to the
alright.
debt policy. Steps to, somebody highlighted plan,
I think I was confused about plan and program again.
steps to completing the capital plan.
Oh, because the first sentence
Says
says
program.
program, so I was like, well, but this is about completing the plan. It's like, that's the end goal.
I think I
Yeah,
rewrite that
I think it's
sentence,
planned.
but,
And so
Okay.
capital program should be planned? In the first sentence?
Probably.
Yes,
To begin
Yeah.
it, select-
based on our definitions.
I want you
Yeah.
to say, prior to the beginning of this process, select board will establish.
I think I'd get rid of those words.
It's already been established.
Okay, just say the select board should establish. Get rid of the first, prior to beginning this process. In the first sentence.
Select
Yeah.
Is
board-
Get
that
rid
a
of that?
one-time thing? That they established this
Yes,
process and now
Now it's
ongoing, it
established,
doesn't matter?
yeah.
I think that first capital program is meant to be capital plan, because then you go on and it says. This is the problem with using.
Steps to complete the capital plan, then it's step 1, 2, 3, so.
Yeah.
The select board creates the program of what. Right, so this is what we're creating the program, the select board's gonna approve it, and that's how we create the plan.
But every year they're not telling us what they hope to achieve. Right, as part of developing the capital program. This is what this sentence says, right? Right.
Not every
That's
year,
already
right,
happened, right? They've already.
Right, they've already-
Paneled
yeah,
the
right.
committee
It
and.
doesn't, that doesn't. make sense to me. And select board, when shape their mind, that they're going to provide the parameters under which we operate, not
Yeah, that-
hope
that's-
to, hope to achieve as
fits.
part of developing a, you know, they just to tell us.
You know, every year the select board will provide any guidance necessary, you know,
Yeah.
or applicable
Outline there,
guidance
right?
So,
Take out all those
to be
extra
used in the
words.
plan, but they've already done, they already know what they want to achieve.
Do you think we need that whole paragraph?
I don't think you need it.
I agree.
I read it
You
again.
know, like, cause then it goes into step one, step two, like,
Yeah,
why not just go
I'd
into
get
the
rid of it.
steps, like.
so take the whole thing out?
Yeah,
Thank you. Too much.
Yeah, all right, step one.
And then we could get rid of steps two, and the title could be completing the capital plan,
One step,
and then you've got step one, step two,
So do what?
that title. So we got rid of the paragraph, we're gonna have that title hanging out there, steps to completing the capital
Just say
plan.
completing the capital plan.
Yeah, so we'll delete
Take out
steps
step two.
two. And now it'll say completing the capital plan, and then it goes down to step one, step two.
Okay,
Will support the goals and objectives of the community and town planning. Should support always sounds a little, it's the wrong language.
it's wrong language. What should it say?
Capital program will support the goals and objectives of the community,
Will?
right? Not should,
yeah, I agree.
well, maybe.
Okay,
It will be in concert with, it will align with or something, but you can change.
We're
the
actually
rest.
gonna do it.
Right.
Like,
You're not gonna think about it. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
No hoping and praying here.
Yeah, down in the next, on the top of the first, next page, where it says the select board should also,
Yeah, you gotta make these power statements here.
yeah. The very first line of that page,
will also consider other needs.
right?
I'm gonna have to leave this whole thing.
I'll clean it up and I'll send it out,
Yeah,
a clean
just the
version, so you
margin
can,
I'm a bit
yeah.
confused, I agree with it. Keep in mind that a community's needs should not be limited to bricks and mortar projects.
like studies or surveys or
No, I understand.
not just building
Reappraisals.
something, reappraisals that
But
you're not physically gonna have something.
There's
Yeah,
some of
this
this education and some of it, this is a step, there's between the steps in doing a project versus providing background, and this is like an educational piece, where we're saying. What you just said. You know, there are non-bricks and mortar ways, there's technology, there's. The appraisals. So it's-
you can almost bullet point this.
Yeah, it's a little bit dirty. Anyway, just send it, we can.
You wanna bullet that one?
I'm almost wondering if this paragraph should be up above someplace. It's not really a step. It's sort of the philosophy about a plan.
That's well said.
Like,
Yes, steps are, this is what you do to accomplish something.
like, when we say the program, what is the capital improvement program?
Oh, yeah.
it's sort of like an intro, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like,
It's already been
it's
done.
kind of educating the,
We're going to do it, we've already
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah, but. I just like understand that a capital plan isn't always bricks and mortar, it can be a number of other things, including appraisals, consultations. Studies.
Well, I guess, I think what it's trying to say, and I guess it's not doing a very good job, is. You know, if your town plan says that in the next 10 years, you're gonna provide senior housing and you're gonna develop wastewater in your village. This is how you get it done. So step one is, do we have any definitive goals? Most towns do. North Hero's known for a decade, it wants a new fire station. Longer, actually. So I think what it's trying to say here is identify your goals. It's just not doing it really.
Well, it does in the last paragraph, where it said the select board should agree upon the goals and objectives.
Then just to delete everything else.
Stuff like
It's just-
In conjunction with the town plan or whatever.
Yeah,
I just think it's too wordy.
I think you're right. You lose sight of the fact that you're supposed to set a goal. Like,
Steps should be relatively shorter bulleted. you know.
So do you
yeah,
want to then just summarize, so take the third paragraph as the first, and then say that the goals and objectives should reflect the town plan, like what the things that we are supposed to
is
consider.
this, sorry to interrupt you, Jim, is this paragraph intended for the boards and committees who do, who have to fill out all of it? Like, who is this, who's the intended audience of this?
We are, right? This
No,
is,
But if you go down to step two and start reading that, it gets into the actual forms and attachments, it's like what they have to do.
So we have to follow the goals and objectives that have been set by the select board.
Okay.
But that was more prescriptive, right? I mean, that was done before the committee, like,
Yeah.
before it even went through its first cycle, right?
We already knew these projects were happening, so we
But even
better
this
get on
paragraph,
board.
I think it was written, from the perspective that we're creating the first one.
Hmm.
And
Well, but in 5 years, goals or 10 years, the goals and objectives may change from our original. So every year, they should be
should be, I agree.
reevaluated. The select board should reevaluate what's the goals, and, because it's not always gonna be what they are today.
agreed, I don't know if you need 3 paragraphs to say it, but
Probably not.
yeah.
No,
Well,
this is way
yeah,
too long.
some intro, yes,
I mean, I think this document is intended to carry on, like 10 years from now, 15 years from
I think
now.
that last paragraph, that select board should agree upon the goals and.
Goals and
Or the
objectives
select board should provide guidance on goals and objectives for the
to help
committee.
facilitate, take out early on.
The select board will provide goals and objectives.
Yeah, no, I should agree, yeah.
But I don't know if we need all that other detail above it.
No, and it makes me wonder about our timeline. Maybe like at the beginning of every year, we should be having meeting with the select.
Right,
board
like,
or-
what are your
Before we
goals?
start, what are your goals and
Yeah.
objectives?
Yeah,
And if you wanna put that in a notes section or a glossary or something, in the
Yeah.
back as a definition or something, but
Could you would you agree with taking out early on?
Yes, I didn't like that.
because also the select board has the final say on this. But if we don't start the process knowing what they want, and then we go to all the other boards and committees and
Oh,
then
yeah,
get
but
their
it is.
goals, and we've never accounted for the select boards.
We irregular everything.
Yeah.
maybe that should be on our calendar.
I'm just making a note, add it to the timeline. Establish
And the updates to the goals,
goals and objectives.
objectives.
Okay, so the third paragraph, the select board will provide the goals and objectives to help facilitate the prioritization of projects, however, the capital program. plan
Discuss,
should
we'll
be
highlight
modified.
discuss below in step 6, wherever that is, not you.
I think we should just have that one sentence there.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Take out the rest.
Yeah,
Yeah, period after project.
after,
So this whole thing
We
is
still
gonna
keep the
go,
heading, but we just have that one, couple sentences at the end, right?
Select board to help,
this is going,
will provide the goals and objectives that help facilitate the prioritization of projects.
and then period.
This is the kind of government I like. Mullen Salt, right? It's good.
I think Lisa, probably what Angie just said, and Corinne, just end that first sentence after the word prioritization of projects.
oh, you don't need the other sentence?
Nope. We're still figuring out the rest of that anyway.
So this is going to?
Yep.
Do we need
Right.
this discussed in?
I don't know what step 6 says. So I would leave it off maybe until we get there. I'll highlight it if we want to come back to it, whatever you
Okay.
think makes sense for you to. You're doing a great job.
No, I think it's
keeping up with all
it's step 6 of self-explanatory, you don't need to say that.
We don't need it?
Um,
Hopefully they're reading it.
Right, okay,
Inventory of assets and conditions, and Jim suggested everywhere else we were putting what the different appendix was, and appendix A didn't have the description, so he,
thank you.
yeah, added asset and fleet inventory. And that was the only change made to that suggested there.
If I was ever gonna do this again, I would put some of these in bold, because it gets lost in paragraphs for me. Appendix A is asset and fleet.
Do you want those
Appendix B-
bold?
Don't think about that, but it gets lost in paragraph. And yet using more words than you probably need to.
I don't know, maybe that last sentence, assessments are realistic and as accurate as possible. That's kind of
Yeah,
self-explanatory and the whole reason for the process.
is there anywhere where we communicate to agency or departments and boards, commissions to notify us or remove assets that are no longer?
Well, when they do their annual review of the asset inventory, they should let us know that this one's not there anymore.
Do we say that? Do we instruct them anywhere in this document to do that?
In this document?
Yeah,
No, but I think it's in the letter
Yeah.
that goes out with
Okay,
the appendix A, B, C, and D that went out.
okay.
But it's a good thought, if this is gonna be on. I guess where do you keep all of the, well, there are policies, program policies, and there are guidelines, I guess that's a guideline.
That's a guideline.
Yeah, because I'm looking at that last sentence on that first paragraph of under number, except to leaving items out may result in problems later on in the form of unexpected expenditures. But also leaving things on that shouldn't be on,
Has the same effect.
that was sent up before. But we don't need to, if it's covered someplace else, it's fine.
Maybe that should be in board responsibilities. Up further, because we've added, that they should let us know about projects off cycle.
Oh, right, right.
We should let them know, let us, Cause it says identify capital needs, it doesn't say anything about.
Annual updating of asset inventories.
Is that in there?
It's not.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah, maybe put something in there in terms of.
Will help identify capital needs.
Maybe something effective, provide an update. Provide an update to the asset inventory. To include new. Order disposed assets or something to that effect.
Provide an update, what?
Provide an update of the annual, is it called the annual?
It's asset, yeah.
Asset inventory
Just reading something in general.
Right.
to include new assets
Include new assets
and. Remove,
and remove
what's the term of art, right, for that, assets that are
Absolutely.
no, that have been
decommissioned or.
disposed or. There's another word, I can't think what it is. We'll come back to that.
there's
Just put a note.
assets that have been.
Decommission, I mean, there's a thing that are.
Thrown out, and we'll come back to it later.
Well, some could be sold, some, it's not just
Yeah.
thrown out, it could be sold, it could be, but there is a term
That's
for
probably
it.
why there's. a word
Disposed
for
of,
it. It could be-
disposed of.
Yeah,
Disposed.
is the selling count as disposing?
Sure, I guess. We can,
We'll Google it.
yeah, we'll make that, well, I'll highlight that one too, I know.
Or eliminated, I don't know, something will come and do.
We'll look at that one again too. Okay, so this was the inventory, so what about that last sentence? Do you want it or not? Assessments are realistic and as accurate as possible.
I take
No,
that out.
take it.
Take it out? Okay, Step 3. So this was determining where we are with the previous year's projects.
So it just, and that fits in the timeline of our schedule, it's highlighted by the departments. That's the one that's Frank and Jim are, step 4.
I mean, Terry said to remove this paragraph. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, we've got big projects going underway. We don't even know what our debt capacity is, so.
Yeah, I just wondered if the
Like-
word should is some part or somewhere quick.
Will analyze.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Okay,
So who, so we are not going to assess the town's financial capacity. It is, oh wait, wait a minute. The first sentence says, with the assistance of the treasurer, I'm thinking, oh.
The select board will handle it.
it's like,
Yeah, except for
it
the
ultimately,
accountability.
Yeah.
Right,
I'm pulling together that.
and I've almost got mine done. I think I need one more number, so. We're close.
Will instead of should is a good.
What does the town use for when they do, what's it, bonded debt? Do they use a accounting firm or do they use a,
Vermont Bond Bank?
what do they use a bond bank? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm fine with this.
All right,
Thank you.
going. And Jim, we do have a sweeper. He said we
Really?
should get rid of sweeper. The street sweeper, but we have one. But I put plow truck in there. And broken, we don't have sidewalks, so we took out broken sidewalks and put steps at the library. As an example. And then Terry suggested review against ranking model. Somewhere we need to put in there, but I think it's down below that the ranking model comes in.
That's in prioritization, it doesn't. Talks about the concepts,
I think we need to put it there.
but doesn't even detail what it is. How it works, just that it's a difficult process.
I was on B, step 5, so. It just strikes me as odd in a plan that we would make references to specific things that may go away. And I'm just sure, does it reduce potential legal liability?
So take out the examples.
I would, but just reads like. And it's okay, you know, someone's gonna repair the broken steps or buy a plow truck eventually, it's gonna be obsolete. I guess I was wondering who if the audience is us, I think we know that.
Hmm.
Good point. That's my
Take it out.
I would recommend that.
Yay, nay.
Do we need the ABCs? I mean, the project or asset will maintain or improve the delivery of public service to the majority of the population. Maintain or improve. Reduce operating costs. I mean, aren't those- All listed somewhere else already? That we use for the ranking model, or is that?
You wonder
Where
if
we
it's
got the
because
ranking model
someone
from.
gave us a whole bunch of money and they want us to build something, it may not be a priority, so either we don't take the money or we
Yeah.
build it, kind of thing, where does that?
Yeah.
fit?
Do some of these things we tie back to the town's plan? The goals and objectives, the big,
I don't know.
I thought I remember reading these someplace else.
I think the one thing that the section does is it helps the taxpayers understand the decision process, which we know is always the hardest part,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
trying to help them understand what the decision points are. And I think it helps defend the model as well, right? Because the model aligns with this pretty closely in terms of the discussion and how the schedule, the appendix D was drafted.
So for posterity's sake, we leave examples in.
Or maybe leave the A, B, and C, but get rid of the examples.
Good, yeah.
I would give it the
Examples
examples.
are-
I would get rid of-
Tightens it up.
Typically, this is ours, but it's really open, it's very limited.
Yeah, in terms of the model, we've created it based on what we thought were the most important components of it.
Do you want to
That may
eliminate the
change.
example in A as well then?
Okay,
Certainly tighter.
yeah. Move down.
So that's all of step 5.
I just pretty much. Okay.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Step 6.
This stuff is not easy. That be said about the whole. process.
But some of it reads like I keep reading it as this is a process manual for us to follow, but it's half process manual, half educational. Education.
And for those new people who are just doing this for the first time, were not participating when we created it, they'll have a better understanding, right? I mean, we're creating this for when we're all not here.
It goes back to,
Yeah.
Frank's point about what belongs to
The pub-
the.
For the public, yeah, I'm sure that's where you're going.
And what kind of belongs in a preamble educational piece about what this all means and how to do it.
So Terry had update as necessary. I'm not sure.
Because it contemplates using a ranking sheet or model. And we have one.
So yeah, we should take out the,
So this might be the spot where we say we use a ranking model.
This is driven by
Yeah,
this, by step 5,
Step
right? I
five,
mean, I think
exactly.
we really have to say that these things are together and we thought very carefully about how they work together.
okay, so how do we say that?
Not this.
Community members,
And it's well written. That's exactly.
yeah, so committee members will review project proposals, right? We're gonna take out should,
yep.
using the, all right, so let's spell here. Will review project proposals using, so what do we call it? And do we tell people like how to find it? You know, because it's not a part of this document. And as an Excel spreadsheet, I don't know that it really can be, because everything else is an appendix.
That's our job.
Yeah.
Can ask us.
Or all
We
projects.
could add it as an appendix.
Just,
I don't know what we're up to, Z, I think. Appendix, Z is good. Appendix.
Build some more alphabet.
Z will be the ranking model.
because if the idea is that people can find all the information, none of us are here,
Yeah,
they'll need
Okay.
to know.
I offer, can we, that first paragraph,
Just get rid of it.
It's
I think we should get
problematic.
rid of it.
It's not a step.
No, it's,
Yeah,
and then I would get rid of the first paragraph.
I mean, I think it's okay to work in the concept that it's not an easy step. I mean, it is that the committee ranks proposals as directly as possible. However, there may be,
Well, so this is perhaps the committee's
Challenges.
most difficult task.
So it suggests,
that's right. I like that. Is the committee's most difficult task. Maybe continuing that first sentence in the second paragraph.
Something, adoption of capital improvement and debt policies can provide helpful guidance in addition to public policies, use of the rate sheet and model. Can facilitate object. It's almost like we're, we need to say upfront that we've adopted a ranking model.
I think what we're kind of getting at is how do we know in the future that we've been doing that? If this, the way this is worded, it's almost suggesting it, but we've decided to do it.
Exactly, because this is, it can't, like we're saying,
See,
when it
between-
says can facilitate object, it's like we're trying to convince people that.
Right.
This
This
is
was
the way
really
to do
written a
it.
year ago, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we've made a lot of progress since
CIP
then.
committee ranks capital proposals based upon established criteria by the committee. Period. Available in appendix ZZ, whatever it is.
So, okay, so where is that going and what was it? Where, so,
I
I
would
think we're still
say-
figuring that
I
out.
would think I would put,
I just
I
read
would
it- I just
delete
read
in
it.
sentence, I would say, basically what we were just discussing.
I just read the sentence in here. So if I added it.
I honestly think we could delete everything up until the committee members will review, because it's still trying to convince us
Yes,
to do a ranking
agreed.
model.
CIP
And
committee ranks capital proposals based upon objective criteria established by the committee. That's like really the first sentence of the second paragraph with some modification.
And maybe,
I think that needs to be, There has to be some lead in that for the taxpayer that.
Yeah.
You know, this is difficult, but there has to be a process. There is a process. There's criteria that's been
Which is
adjudicated.
available.
Okay, so in this step, the CIP committee ranks capital proposals as objectively as possible. That stays. This is perhaps the committee's most difficult task.
I would take out qualifiers. I mean, this is just how we write them, as objectively as possible. I don't know what that means, just objectively, or objectively that, you know, does
So
the job
say
again, or
Perhaps,
are we just ranking them based on?
It's an allocation of resources, right? You have to-
Based on
Prioritization of resources and.
as opposed to sounding wishy-washy.
So just take out as and just keep the objectively, take out as possible.
Ranks car projects based upon, great,
Well, that's your
Based upon
ranking
established
system, isn't it?
criteria.
Isn't that what the
Based
ranking
on-
system does? It
based
makes
on
it
the ranking
objective.
system, thank you.
Criteria.
Based on criteria,
Established rank, yeah.
Established by
Established ranking
the
criteria.
committee,
Yeah.
based on, well, you could say it was based on the select board or not.
well, it's in step 5,
Yeah,
based on the criteria in step 5.
I think that part where we say, although the select board's adoption of the capital improvement debt policy can provide helpful guidance. I think I would eliminate that.
Hmm.
This is perhaps the committee's most difficult task.
Yeah, and after that, it's just.
Well, we haven't finished the first sentence yet.
and get rid of that,
Like,
get rid of this.
Or some based on criteria established.
I could, yeah,
in step 5,
And capital
Yes.
select.
or
Yeah,
even
or
just based
detailed.
on the criteria. in
Established
step
by the
5.
committee, based on criteria and,
by the committee,
yeah, detailed in step 5 and something.
Yep. For outline.
detailed in step 5,
You can take it objectively. Because the criteria should be.
see appendix Z, ZVZ.
That's the committee's most difficult task. And then if you skip down to in addition to formal policies, it's talking about rating sheets, which is you've already established.
Yeah, we already-
I think you can eliminate that.
Take
sentence.
that out.
Yeah, committee members will review project proposals using consistent criteria. It's so redundant.
Yeah, it is.
So take that out.
Yeah,
I think the idea of making these decisions that are. In, how does it say, it? In support. Of. Community goals, maybe it's always say it's in context with the community plan or. Not that's important enough. But where do we need to talk about that? You'll ask, this will enable the communities to prioritize projects based on objective analysis and context. I don't know what that
That
means.
repeats the first sentence.
yeah,
It does, yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna prioritize project objectively. That's what we said
Yeah,
in the
right.
first sentence.
Yeah.
So take the last sentence out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the purpose and evaluate in relation to others? Is that staying or going?
That's for sure.
It should all go.
Did we finish
This
this?
is perhaps
Did
the
we finish
committee's
the
most
second sentence?
difficult task.
I think so.
And then we had, and evaluate each in relation to the others to determine the relative importance. That's sort of hanging there.
Mhm.
But that's about the criteria, usually the criteria. So,
Maybe say this is perhaps the committee's most difficult task as it must evaluate each in relation to the other to
Yes, it
determine the relative.
must evaluate each in relation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
All right, what about the next?
But it's almost like that first sentence could be a standalone, because it's really important too. And then you could create a new paragraph with this is perhaps the committee's most difficult task. Which could lead right into the capital planning process will likely generate significant discussion.
Again, but this is talking about like the first capital plan.
this is an operations meeting.
So, yeah, get rid of it.
Yeah, I think so.
The whole next part?
And I hope every year you have this, a good discussion at the town
It's
meeting.
Almost like speculation.
But there could be discussion as bigger projects come up or things like that. And
Yeah.
that seems to me to be like an evergreen statement that
And we would,
Every year, there could be a lot of discussion.
capital planning process will likely, could generate, or will likely generate significant discussions, and we would encourage that, because it's important, well, let's say that thing. We want, part of this is getting people to understand what the reasoning behind what's happening, get used to it. So maybe something. How do you think we should arrange it?
Or isn't it self-evident that if there's controversy, it'll generate discussion?
Yeah, we talked about how difficult it is.
Can you
This
just
is,
scroll up?
this is the section that's the hardest.
Can you
right?
scroll up just a little
Yeah.
bit? please?
This is what it's all about.
This one's,
Yeah.
okay, step 6, okay. I can look, this is
This
the
is
context of
the-
everything, so this stuff is, you know,
Capital planning committee ranks capital projects objectively based upon.
this is where after committees most difficult tasks.
As it must evaluate each in relation to the others to determine their relative
Yeah.
importance.
Process will likely generate significant discussion.
Is that the end of that section? Delete the rest.
Can you scroll down a little bit more, please?
That's the whole thing.
What about leaving, getting, I will say the capital planning process will likely generate significant discussion. Developing a list of priorities is critical to a successful capital plan. Just leave that last sentence. The first
And get rid of
sentence
everything in
last
between?
The governing officials, they started by drafting the first capital plan,
Yeah.
which.
sentence. They were
already
Done.
done, yeah.
It's like the
I-
Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
That was easy.
Okay, moving along.
Gotta get this thing down to 3 pages, but.
If we get more efficient every year, my gosh.
We'll get it down to a tweet.
So we take out multi-year again and
Yeah,
put 6,
Sure.
like we did before. Take out the parentheses, take out 6.
What is this step? After completion of this step, this is step 7. After completion of this step, the committee will have developed a fiscal plan. Through this, more estimates should be made for, see, we gotta change those words. For each year, of the capital plan.
I don't think we've ever
We
really
don't
had
do
to
that.
do this because, well, our first year, we already we just basically wrote down projects that were already
Underway, that's it.
underway. But in the future, we might need to say to the select board, this is priority 1, we don't see it in your operating budget, and it'll add 20 grand a year forever.
Mhm.
You know, then they'll have to decide if they think that's still worth being priority 1.
To do this, the following estimate should be made for each year, operating expenditure, revenues, contract costs. Who are we asking to do this? Us or the departments, or departments to us? This is what I'm confused about.
Yeah,
So the sheet's gonna, the ranking model has has the cost, right? It's got
Operating costs.
broken down by funding and then years. So, I mean, if we need more in there, that can certainly be built out.
It's certainly a model.
No, this is what we give to the select board. So we pull everything together.
Yeah, but they could my point is that it's all together in one place. It's a ranking
Right.
model that includes the numbers that are in question, I think, could be some of them.
What I'm just missing is where is this and how do we get it? How do we, doesn't, to your point, doesn't tell us how.
Yeah, I don't think we need 10 different documents. I mean, I can certainly incorporate. build it out a
So it
little
would
more.
say, after completing the ranking model.
Yes, that's my problem with this statement is just, it talks about a step, but we don't say what the step is. I mean,
Yeah.
it says it in the title, but we don't say how we do it.
So after completion of the ranking model, or after completion of step 6, whatever, I like the ranking model because it
Yeah.
reinforces.
Completion of the ranking model.
Yes,
See appendix ZZ.
See,
Z.
BVA.
and then where it says in that next sentence to do this, I would suggest rewriting that, something to the effect of the, the CIP, or actually, we're now saying CPP, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna do a word search after that. The CIP will, consider the operating expenses, revenues, contract cost reserves, funds, and known debt service commitments.
The CIP will, the CPP will what?
Will consider. Make it just consider the following estimates. For each year.
So we're gonna take out this.
Yep.
To do this, the CPP will consider the following estimates for each year of the capital plan, operating expenditures, revenues, contract costs, revenue. Full picture of these. items.
What's the
That's great.
CPC, the capital, that's the capital
Planning program.
program. The capital planning program is gonna do this. I thought the capital
The
planning
committee.
committee is
The
gonna do it.
committee,
The plan is just a written document.
needs to say CPP committee.
Committee.
Thank you.
But this is really us though, right? It's not, it's us coming up with the
Yeah.
model, it's applying the numbers to
Yeah.
it based on that. And then presenting to the select board.
The capital
Select
planning,
board
that's our
would not have
job.
already done that based on,
Capital planning committee will have to
we'll
do
have
it.
developed a fiscal picture.
So take the select board out.
I just think at this step, it's not.
Yeah, I would
done.
agree.
They would get involved at the next step after they get this from us and decide what they like and what they don't.
How about, I said will have developed, will develop.
Mhm.
Give her the past tense, will develop. And then I think the whole picture of these items for future years will then create. A 6-year financial picture. Okay,
Can't wait to get to the next one.
Good with 7?
I mean, should we be talking about this being presented to the select board here in this step? Not, is that a little bit?
I'm sorry, can you just scroll just a little bit, Lisa?
Well, yeah, because the next one is how do we pay for the projects? Look at, how do we decide to pay? for it?
Okay,
We have to
yeah.
tell them somewhere.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. Where the rubber meets the road, I think we can get,
Get rid of that?
get rid of that. This is,
Get the whole first
yeah,
sentence
yeah, it's.
after completing the previous steps.
It almost reads like a little too folksy or
Mhm.
something.
Agreed.
And take out select board because we haven't presented it.
Because we need to determine how. we're
Step
gonna-
9 is where we
The
present it.
recommendations for how we pay for these, right? That's what this is all about, capital acquisitions.
Well,
What's the purpose of anything?
yeah, the select board will receive an analysis of what financing options are,
Right.
funding options for each proposed
Project.
each range
That
project.
doesn't say that.
Do we even need this stuff?
Well, I think,
Yeah, we need to say that. We need
It's
to
not
say
even
that.
capital acquisitions, right? It's not even buying something.
No.
There's other stuff going on in this thing
Right, we
too.
need, what Frank
Right.
said.
What did you just say?
This is not just capital acquisitions, which is what the step says, the title of the step says. This is all financing,
all
whether
that
it's an
work.
acquisition
Yeah,
or
or
a
bonding.
Yeah,
maintenance
this is
item
actually
or
really big, yeah.
something else. It's,
so this is where we could tell the select board, this is how we think you can fund these projects we're recommending. And if one of them is $1 million bond, we're convincing them why. Well, I
We
guess
broke
that's
our
not our
own-
job, no,
No,
we're just showing
I
there's a
guess-
deficit that has to be funded through
Yes.
How would you
another
decide to do
method,
it?
yes,
other than what's been presented by the
yeah.
department.
And again, if it's not capital acquisition, we talked about other places that all capital isn't buildings and.
So we could just call this financing.
You okay with that?
Do we need to take out a select board too? Because they
Mhm.
haven't done that yet.
Is it fiscal outlook or is it more required, like something more like required?
This
The side.
With the funding requirement, all the funding requirements,
projected
Is it
funding
just-
requirements.
or proposed funding requirements.
So proposed.
I was just getting rid of after completing the previous stuff. The whole idea is we're doing this sequentially.
This makes
What did you
sense.
say? Proposed funding, what?
Requirements or sources,
Options.
Sources
And options.
and options, and take out, what did you say?
But after completing the previous steps,
The first sentence.
the first sentence,
Take that,
just start with the,
F-
the
the CA
CPP
CPP?
committee
Okay.
will.
Okay. Well, it's the
You're doing great.
proposed funding sources and options by year.
I'm not sure what options means, so. Just said that. right.
The CPP committee.
So those revisions.
how do we take that by year?
Well, it's a multi-year plan, so of
No,
course,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would think that would be implied, but we'll have a list of prioritized projects
And this.
and proposed funding sources.
I think we need that sentence there.
I don't believe that last sentence.
I mean, none of this is saying what we're gonna do,
No,
which is the whole point. So if, what are we gonna have to do with financing?
this also gonna, this also assumes there's gonna be a shortfall.
The first, the only sentence there really should be near the end.
So maybe-
Action might be. Projects for year as well as funding sources.
Or maybe we start
Yes.
over and say, this is the step where we determine if there are any shortfalls. And if so, provide recommendations for how they can be.
It's
Met.
interesting.
It's an action step, and there is an action.
That's really, the CIP, the CPP committee will present a list of prioritized projects.
But I think we determined that in step 7. So we're gonna have a list of prioritized project. This is called financing. So I think your gut reaction of this, is this necessary, may be accurate, but I think because we just haven't approached this yet.
Okay.
You know, where there may, I could see a potential.
Can you
where-
just scroll up just a little bit? I'm sorry for interrupting, Craig, but I think
That's
this
fine.
might be answered in step 7. Where we say,
Maybe they're combined.
yeah, to do this, the CPP will consider the following estimates for each year, the capital. A full picture of these items for years will then create a financial picture.
And then we could add like a second paragraph there that says, if there is a budget shortfall, the CPP will present options for,
Recommendation. or something.
yeah,
Says
we
budgetary
change-
impact and you could have the financing or
the
funding or-
CPP committee will present options for funding, I would say. We don't wanna assume it'll be, yeah.
And then you just change, what do you wanna call this step 7 then? Does assessing budgetary
Well,
impact just happen?
We keep taking out select board because we haven't presented it to them yet, but then step 9 jumps right to it, presenting it. The select board has to go over this with us at some point. So maybe step 8 is select board approval.
So
or-
7 should be, we're assessing the budgetary impact and finance, is financing right?
I think it's covered, if you read that first sentence, the CPP committee will develop a fiscal picture of income expenditures for future years. To me, that sort of incorporates,
based on the ranked,
yeah, that incorporates, we've already considered if there's shortfalls or,
based on recommended project.
right?
So take out that last line?
I'm thinking,
Get rid of
we
eight.
get rid of 8,
Yeah.
because you've already addressed in that last sentence, you just added Lisa in number 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get rid of it.
And then just have to re-
Title of 7, where's that? Is
I
that
think
still
that's
covered?
fine,
Still
that's
covers it?
budgetary impact. So this will become step 8 then.
Oh, I see.
So I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we had, but we do,
Okay.
we present it to the planning commission, then we present it to the select board, so we can
There
take,
you
we
go.
can totally get rid of 8.
Awesome.
Then just renumber it.
Yeah, I'll renumber them. Okay,
Okay.
so now.
The CPP committee will present.
Present planning commission for review and comment.
I guess it's comments. Will they be incorporated or should they be incorporated?
May.
Uh,
We don't wanna like, give right a form.
that may be incorporated. Okay.
They may not have it.
And the final report will be sent to the select board.
Question, just. Because it kind of reads, I can read it both ways. Does the second sentence, the planning committee, because we're saying that report to the planning committee for review and comment, and then we say they may be incorporated into the final report. Do we need to say that, or do we just say, you know? All, you know, we'll prepare a final report for presentation to the select board. It just, I'll use it as might be incorporated, but then what does that mean? Like, if we don't
I
like
just think
it.
it shows a link between the planning
Yeah.
commission and the,
I read it like, if we don't like their comments, we're not gonna put it in there, and that's not the
well, they may
intent.
not have it, so they may. or
They
may
might
not
not have any. It's good. Should. I didn't want to kind of make us like it back.
The report will provide the committee's analysis.
Fiscal capacity.
And so Jim, you had a recommendation here. Terry had a new insert.
So this will be step 9, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to change all those, yep. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding was always, we do go to the select board. When we implement a project, whether it's been approved or not, and that's been our practice. Just because it is approved here, I'll use the example of what did we do? Of the basement, it was approved in this capital budget process, we still went to the select board and with the bids. Made a recommendation based upon the bids, so it wasn't an option, I didn't think. You gentlemen doing that, the library? But that was the understanding, once you get approval for a project, doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the appropriate bids in place, because there's there's at least a single bid is frowned upon. Or there may be in other cases that we found out there's additional information about projects, so
Permits or things like that.
there's a bunch of stuff. So it isn't as simple as that. So there should be an approval process. The capital budget was approved, even in healthcare. Capital budget's approved. If I want to buy a $5 million lithotripsy, I still need to go and say, it's on the capital budget, here's what it's really gonna cost. And the board still says yes or no.
So what is agreement on the care board side?
Oh, man.
How often are the periodic reports being given? By the CPP committee, for the select board?
They're not.
No, not at all, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind
So
of, this
let's
is,
not say
this
we're
is a
doing
new
anything we're
step
not
for
doing,
us.
or let's do the things we say we do.
I mean, yeah. I think we're struggling with this one because we haven't done it yet. Like the other ones have been kind of easy. I don't want to say easy, but we're kind of flying through it and coming to easy consensus because we've been around the horn. Whereas this one, it's kind of like, okay, we haven't really had to do it.
I think,
Some qualifier, like if required, or if,
Well, kind of like how there's a threshold for a capital improvement project of 10 grand, maybe we want to say anything in a variance of 10, I'm just totally spitballing here, but. Is that where we're headed, like parameters like that?
I don't think we're
Or-
ready.
Well, what is the
Well, it's
select
not
board?
just cost.
The select board should.
Yeah.
And what if it gets pushed out a year? Or what if it gets moved up a year? Like Grant came in earlier, we've got to spend the money by this date. We need to know the timing
Yeah.
as well.
So we
not
say
just the
scope,
fiscal.
timing, cost.
Right, yeah,
But
but
Jim's
it's only
right.
as good as the info we get from
yes.
the department.
Well, Jim is asking, what does the select board want to know?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
isn't it?
I mean, I don't,
So,
but seriously,
yeah.
help me with this, if the fire station gets approved. you know, we'll allocate whatever the amount of dollars are, we've done that, it's going forward. I would assume that the select board is still intimately involved in the development of that project. So what this says is, once we get the money, we're not to go back. It doesn't make sense operationally. Because in one hand, we're not practicing what it says here. We do go to the select board and get their approval, even if we do have an approved capital project. Because things change. Right, money changes, bids change.
Yeah.
Well, to me, if you present a project and it says, here's the cost, here's the scope of the project, here's the cost, and here's when we expect to start, and here's when we expect to end. And that's all in the budget, and the budget gets approved. Then at least in business, you've got the authorization to go do it, as long as you're still matching the scope, timing, and cost. If you have a change, then you gotta go back to.
If you
whoever.
have a contractor approved, if you have a bid, you have the right number of bids in place. And all, so I think the select boards have, they've been involved with each of those as well, as far as I understand it. We've always been asked by the town to bring our bids to the select board. Granted, they are multi-million dollars, they're
Mhm.
30,000, but the select board still wants to make, because they're the ones monitoring. Does this company meet our specifications? Until we have a list of company, approved companies, that's where we are.
This is really managing this process, saying that we're gonna send out the appendix D for updates. Off cycle.
I think we're getting into them.
Well,
I
with
don't think
our,
That's Jim's proposal, right? I mean, you're saying that we've got,
My view on this thing is, we only need to know for informational purposes. We don't get to act on it. If there's a change in scope, timing, or cost, the department has to deal with the select board and say, you approve this project, here's the new reality. Select board, can we keep going? That's not our decision. We just need to know so that we can incorporate it into our plan. So monitoring is almost even too strong a word. I guess we're monitoring, but monitoring sounds like we're being active, proactive, and we're not.
Updating.
Updating.
Yeah, that's a much better word.
I think for the time being, I would just, I mean, I like what you wrote there, Jim, but in terms of the variances. I don't know if I would, at this stage of the game, like. I think we should get down into like identifying like materiality or what might be de minimis amounts. I think. We will just rely on the boards and commissions. If somebody is aware of something, if they need to ask us, should we report this? We'll know about it. But I think we should just leave it just as any changes. Or any variances, as it's worded.
Well, I think I wanted to specify scope, timing, and cost, because some people might only think of cost, they may not think of timing.
No, I think that's appropriate the way you worded it.
But do we want to put something in here about the select board where report variances over thresholds established by the select board?
you know, what we decided to do this year was to send out in our letter for requested projects, we decided to add for that and ask them to also let us know if there were any changes. Maybe we should just stick with what we know right now, that once a year you'll be asked to give updates, and then we can change this as we figure out what we wanna do. I mean, we're
everything
struggling
that's
with this.
select board would they would like to have.
Yeah, we're struggling with this because we don't know what we're gonna
Important
do.
to them, right?
Like, it's what I'm feeling.
I don't know enough about their workings
Yeah,
to know what is important to them.
so I think we've already
Mhm.
got something else to follow up on. I think we should ask this of Greta. And maybe even if we come back to this and we're still struggling with it, well, maybe rather than bringing the select board a completely concise finished draft for approval, we should start with, we've updated this and we have a question for you before we finalize it.
And it might be more than just this area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and what would you like us to do?
right. And then we
And-
can incorporate it and bring them back.
Yeah. That's a good suggestion.
So let's just highlight this, we'll come back to it.
Mhm.
No, we're not moving on?
Yeah, we're moving on, but what, I'm just, so the word update just threw me for the second.
Oh, because they're gonna do
we
it
just put
twice.
update up there.
Oh, yeah, we
It says
did.
Update the
Capital program.
program.
So this says annually updating of the capital program.
Oh, the program is the whole thing,
Mhm.
and we took the dates out, so we wouldn't have to do that.
It just should be done as as needed. or
Review the capital program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to
changes. Doesn't have to be,
change, yeah,
you can do it anyway.
annual reviewing,
Review.
Very nice.
CIP will review and revise.
Yes.
I wouldn't say the entire program, I would just say the program as necessary. Cause we're
will review and revise
the program.
As necessary.
the program as necessary to reflect its most.
I would get rid of review too, because we open with annual reviewing. And then the CIP committee will revise
Okay.
as
That's a good
necessary.
point.
And after that,
Then what we say after the first year has a budget is, should, well, that's where we're adding 1 year to the capital plan, okay. Yep.
And rinse and repeat.
I see the home stretch.
Yeah.
So instead of after the first year, do you just want to say each year?
There you go.
The CIP will.
So we're gonna do each year. We're gonna take it has been budgeted out.
Yes,
Each year.
yeah.
The CIP committee adds 1 year to the capital, yep. Good.
Yep.
Capital expenditures, so this is where we say it's $10,000.
We talked about that at length last time and decided to leave it.
Yeah. So the whole capital reserve funds. Since we're not doing a capital reserve fund at this time.
I was suggesting that whether we want to put, if that's the direction we as a committee think the town should be going. Do we want to put some kind of an aspirational statement there? And I drafted something, it's the long-term goal of the town to evolve to a single capital reserve fund that would be accessible by all departments, commissions and boards. Advantages of a single fund rather than the current multiple group reserve funds include monies in existing reserve funds would remain under the control of the particular department, commission or board until such time as the reserves have been depleted on projects for that department, commission, board, after which projects would be funded from the townwide reserve fund. Also, gifts made to departments, commissions, boards would remain uniquely available to that group to acknowledge their efforts and out of respect to the donor. So it's kind of aspirational.
I like aspiration. Just want to make sure that the select board agrees.
I think it's well written.
Well, that's the idea. It's like, this is the direction we'd like to go and here's the reason why, and this is how it would work.
So what they could do, I'm just trying to play this out. I don't disagree, Jim, but I'm wondering if it's more appropriate to put this in like a cover letter. Because
Okay,
they could just
Yep.
literally just take,
Yeah.
they could say, come back and say delete.
Yeah.
That definition or,
Yeah.
That's a
Or
key.
whatever.
we'll take the
I
whole
like the
section.
write-up.
out.
yeah, I think I like,
I like the
write-up, but I
language.
think like in a
Just
cover
take the whole
letter.
section.
Well
out then.
said, yeah.
So if we don't have the second, we don't have to put anything.
It'll just blow up in our faces.
So you're saying delete the whole section?
Just scroll up as to what the heading is. Yeah, delete the whole thing, since it doesn't exist at this
Doesn't
time,
exist,
and
But I think
we'll work on
that
it.
could be something we
Talk to the select board about.
we recognize the towns, whatever the
Reservations.
reservations or whatever action they took last year.
And we'd wanna ask
However,
them,
we're still advocating for. As a
And here's the
committee,
reasons why.
yeah,
we'd wanna ask them.
And here's how to
How they
transition.
like to pursue it.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. So that took care of the problem.
Excellent.
Just
Just
by
keep that
taking it
right
out.
up, Jim.
Say what?
Keep
Yeah,
that
we'll
right up.
keep that right up
Yeah.
front.
Yeah, don't get rid of
Don't get rid of
that.
Let's memorialize that now.
And then there were just some corrections too. It's cemetery commission, it's
Awesome.
library trustees. Timeline, and we'll
Some
add
changes in the-
appendix. It's gonna be appendix I. Would be the rank model.
We'll get to Z eventually.
Awesome, you guys did a great job.
Yes, thank you for all this
Yeah.
tracking.
So I'll clean it up and send it all out to you and we can.
But don't, you can't read it, can't give it, yeah, send it.
You can send it in.
Okay,
You know,
all right.
SharePoint, just
It doesn't work.
attach it as a.
I have to clean up the model a little bit, just with some of the point values we put on there. Just to-
At least I know,
We don't
I was gonna read,
need to do
because I made a couple notes, you'll do a word search for CIP and.
To CTP.
improvement,
Yeah.
Right, and then I would also do a word search for the word should,
Should,
pick up any more though.
should will, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have select board with a capital S, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, I know that.
How do we, what is it? Is it with the is the select board with a capital?
I capitalize it, I don't
I do too.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go, I'll correct that.
like Congress.
It is the select board, it's not a select. board.
Right. Okay, I just want to put that in there so I don't forget. Okay,
And are you gonna attach all the appendices in this document, or does everybody already have that?
would you want me to send those to you? You don't
Yeah,
have them?
I don't-
Yeah, okay.
On the ranking models, anybody have a thought if we need to provide any, like a summary of it, what it does, how it works?
Are you gonna show a sample? An example?
I'll send it to you, what we have.
Okay.
So we make our decision.
Yeah. I mean, how it's really is.
But I understand your comment, Frank, I'm wondering, just. For anybody who's interested in it, it probably might, if you wouldn't mind, like writing just a paragraph or sort of just that,
Yeah, that's fine, I think it's
Explain
helpful
this.
for the taxpayers
Kind of a
to.
big-
yeah.
I mean,
Prove
it
what it comes
really
down to,
says.
right?
That's
says
the foundation of
priority,
the-
Right,
Right.
that is- it's really important. Yeah.
All right, again, for the record, I want to say thank you, Lisa, for.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
it's
doing
good
this
job.
tonight.
Thank
That
you.
was a little hard to
And
say.
it'd be great, everything.
All right.
You're welcome.
Is that his name?
Um, okay, item number 6, Vermont Bond Bank Capital Planning Forum.
So I went to that and I just had a couple points I thought were interesting, but we've been here a long time. I don't know.
If
You-
anybody's interested, I mean, at the last time I said.
Is this a 40-slide PowerPoint presentation or?
No, just gonna tell you. It's just me being like, wow, so much fun, totally geeking out. I wish you were all there.
I love Corinne. Yeah.
But the first topic was somebody who came from the Government Finance Officers Association, and he does this nationally. He just travels around and does these presentations, and it was so good. And interestingly, he talked about ranking models, and he put one up on the screen as an example, and I was like, and he's like, I got this from someplace in DC. It's the best I've ever seen. And I was like, yeah. But
I didn't get it from there.
I know.
I didn't get it from there.
Anyway, I'm like, North Hero's killing it.
That's great.
But yeah, and one of the things he did talk a lot about, the theme of the whole thing was federal funding is going away. Communities need to begin to learning, at least planning to be somewhat self-sufficient if they can. And it was interesting because there were a lot of different speakers, and I don't think this was planned, but that was kind of ended up being their message. And the way this guy from GFOA addressed this was, you should really focus on asset monitoring. And he had a chart about how the infrastructure in this area and the nation is really ranked at like a C level, like a C minus. And the older something gets, the more expensive it is to fix and or replace. And he had a graph showing, you know, when something's brand new, there's like a slight dip where you almost don't think you need to be paying attention to it, but that's where it's cheapest to keep it updated. And he says this is where he sees that a CIP group is most effective for their community when they're aware of what they have and they can begin advocating. And I know we don't want to get into monitoring, but I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting because we're having this discussion. You know, if boards constantly turning over aren't aware of where their assets are in a life cycle and they let it go too far, it costs the town twice to 3 times as much to keep it up.
One of the reasons, though, I think Lisa, I don't know what.
Appendix.
Appendix it was, you know, Lisa asked for, she gave sort of like How long should windows last? How long should air conditioners last? So that
Uh-huh.
we will begin to collect that information, and more importantly, the department chairs, the department managers will be able to see it too. And then
Yeah.
whether we do, whether we monitor it or somebody else.
Or we just have that information available, like, we do need to be aware
You-
what
you
our
can't-
goals are,
yeah, you
and we
can't
don't
find
wanna become the de facto facility managers for the
No,
town, but,
You can't find that information anywhere if you weren't,
right.
don't have history.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering, did he delve into like the benefits of a capital reserve fund, for example?
No,
Talk
I
about
would have, I could have
things.
listened to him all day, like, but no, it was more,
Mhm.
it was more broad than that, it was.
Could you reach out to him? I mean, if you wanted to.
I don't know. I could reach out to who put on the forum and, you know, him, I mean, he lives down south. He, you know, he was hired to
Yeah.
come and give a talk,
Yeah.
which is why it was really good. But
Because I don't disagree with what you just highlighted for us, but I think that leads to the next step. And, okay, yeah, we have what grade C for all of our infrastructure. We know that it's gonna cost twice as much. So how do we like mitigate some of that?
right, well, his recommendation was fixing it sooner, which we can't always do, but as we start tracking,
Yeah,
we'll be able to, we're laying the foundation for
Yeah.
that. You know, we can't put too much on ourselves right away, but
That's a record of it.
well, and that's what was fun for me to sit there and be like, we're headed the right way, we're headed the right way, this is so exciting. We're like, so, yeah, and you know, the more depressing talk were the regional development, or they were Addison County. I think they're like our Northwest Regional Planning. I think it was the executive director for Addison Counties, and he was there to talk about disaster and climates and what he's been tracking with FEMA, and how their goal under this current administration is really to flip so that, you know, in the past, if there was a disaster, you could expect the government to pay about 70%, you'd pay about 30, they're gonna flip that. So if you're an individual, you can plan on nothing. If you're a municipality or a state, you can plan on about 30%. So his recommendation was your CIP should really begin thinking, or maybe in discussions with your select board. Do we as a community want to start planning for that? Should there be a fund for disasters? So just throwing it out there.
has the town ever, I'm just curious, had to, go to FEMA for assistance related to a disaster?
I believe that we did for the ice storm.
Okay.
But that, since then, no. And it's interesting, whenever there is kind of a large scale event, Northwest Regional Planning reaches out to us immediately. Sometimes I get emails like a couple hours into it, and they want to know, are you experiencing, and they kind of list it out, A, B, C, we need, you know, if you are, take pictures, notate
Yeah.
dates, because you won't get funding unless you're doing certain things, and they try and walk you through it. So it's a whole,
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
current program, the state, in order to, they have to have documentation about all the estimated expenditures to even apply for a federal declaration. Which that whole process might be changing as well, so.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys noticed too, I'm sure, but the library has already been hit by funding
Mhm,
issues, the humanities, Vermont Humanities Council has taken a big hit, and
mhm.
that's like the Vermont Reads program and other things. So, yeah.
Yep.
And that's small potatoes compared to.
Well,
What's
North Hero's
next?
been lucky, but I think about, there was somebody there from a town in Vermont where they had a major road washed out. And because it only accessed 5 people and it was over $1 million and they weren't getting their FEMA money, they weren't gonna rebuild it. And they're like, this is devastating for those 5 people. But how do you, these are the decisions towns are starting to have to make. You know,
How do you
it's,
do that?
yeah, and yeah, so. Anyway, I should have like started with that one and ended with the other.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna think about that all the
I know. But, yeah,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for attending.
Yes, future agenda items, item number 7. First of all, I think is it the
The,
20 May
election of
28th, is that the
officers.
next day?
Sorry.
May 28th, is that next meeting? Is it the last one?
Yep,
May 28th
May 28th,
is the next meeting, and then.
we have the board reorg.
Board reorg,
Yep,
will we have another version of this to look at?
we have another version.
but it'll be.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It'll be
it's condensed.
it'll be half the size.
And what else do we need to talk about? We should probably look at the calendar for the
The timeline,
timeline.
the appendices are not due till June 30th, so we'll still have some time.
Okay. All right,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't received anything yet,
okay.
so.
Any other ideas or things?
This is our slow time. We should embrace it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go for that.
And a meeting outside.
Budget season will pick up. We'll be having extra meetings and.
Kramer can't gonna be open.
I won't be able to make the June meeting. I thought I was gonna miss tonight.
Okay.
On a business trip, but it was just rescheduled for that same thing in June.
Okay,
Hope it's a good place.
so May 28th it is. If anyone has any additional items that come up in the ensuing time, just let Lisa know. Anything else for the group to
Thank you
discuss?
so very much.
I'll send it the right up to the model.
That'd be great. Yeah,
Don't lose your paragraph about.
So at least
I've
Lisa
got
has
it,
it too.
I have it, yeah.
One more question about when you email that you sent out regarding the change to the law, the open meeting.
oh,
law,
yeah.
Oh,
About not being able to meet with anybody.
Yeah, I know.
basically,
Isn't that
right?
crazy?
I mean, that's gonna, people
like-
are gonna wanna volunteer.
I know. And she kind of said that. I actually had a couple different lines in there that I kept deleting.
Yeah, it gets too restricted. I tend to.
Because you were at that training, right? Yeah, and you were doing this.
I don't hear it, I can't do it.
Afterwards, I had discussion with people because I worked for years with the sunshine laws with the hospital in Florida, right? But you can't, and they take it too literally sometimes. Like I said, with Berta, for example, if she meets with the town treasurer about what are the new CD, rates, that's not a meeting.
No.
She's gathering information. We just have to kind of get gathering information.
Our-
sometimes.
Most of the select board divisions done outside of.
I know. She was on her job, that's all she was, but I think it's very.
Well, I hope NRPC and
You did a good job.
VLCT, if they're advocating for us, they're good people to have on our side. And I,
No, they're-
and you heard in a listers training today that they're trying.
They're trying, yeah, they realize that, because the listers,
You can't do anything.
right,
You can't operate.
right.
You guys are these-
What's the time frame on the revaluation? the reassessment?
Reappraisal,
Yeah.
it's been moved to 2027, 2028. We have a contract,
you see my
not a
back?
signed contract yet. The lawyer has the contract, but it's in the planning. And it's gonna be every 6 years.
Did
Hmm.
you visit my deck
It
yet?
stays law as of January 1st every
Wow.
6 years. So we gotta plan for it every 6 years.
Did you visit the deck? My deck?
I did.
I missed.
Dolly never even barked.
No, she never. barked.
She's just kind of looking at us.
Yeah, that's exactly.
What
She's a
you
great
doing?
life dog.
I know,
Simon Craig.
85-pound lab.
I know.
All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
You agree?
I agree.
Tricia?
All right.
As
Oh, I
always,
should-
Favor, aye.
Pat,
Aye,
I don't get to vote.
She doesn't get to vote.
I was gonna say-
Not yet, not yet.
Yeah,
all right.
Patricia.
Well, you were very patient listening to us then.
Yeah. you did. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.